Welcome back in. We promise we are not trying to depress you here, but we are talking about the music world into 2025. Unfortunately, sadly, we lost a lot of artists in 2024. Just to name a few, Quincy Jones, who was producer, of course, Toby Keith, Tito Jackson. I mean, you could go on and on. Eric Carmen, some names people might be familiar with.
But Tony Kurre is here, longtime radio DJ here in Birmingham, to really talk about an article that he's writing for Rolling Stone magazine. Because, and we all talk about this, if you're around our age, the people we grew up listening to, unfortunately, several of them have passed away, and many of them, though, are still living, and that's what this article is kind of about. It's kind of a unique article. Tell folks about that. It really is.
So they're getting a group of 50 individuals from across the industry of music, and they're naming a name that's still alive, Paul McCartney. Yep. And how they respond or react to it with their facial expressions is really interesting, because you got Ringo Starr, who could be in that part. Yeah. You got Bob Dylan, who of course has got the movie just came out about that. He just turns 83. Rod Stewart will turn 80 on Friday.
Yeah. He's coming to Birmingham next
year. He is coming to Birmingham.
McCartney's 82, if I'm not mistaken.
He is 82. Willie Nelson, one of those guys where, quite frankly, I think a lot of it has to do with the longevity of what we talk about these artists after they pass away. For example, when Prince passed away, or when Lady Diana, from a celebrity standpoint, passed away, they weren't expected to pass away. Whitney Houston wasn't expected. Michael Jackson wasn't expected. So when they passed away, the news cycle went a long period of time. I think a lot of people have been pleasantly surprised in a very, very good way about Jimmy Carter. We've spoken about Jimmy Carter now for a couple of weeks after his death, particularly with everything else going on with things down in New Orleans. He did, and I mean, it wasn't really to be unexpected, but that should teach you a lot about his life and what he did.
So your contribution in this article, you will center on, to talk about some of the things, you touched on it, but what some of the things that you will center on?
Yeah, the reactionary time, and I think Rolling Stone is more wanting to go with how long it will stay in the cycle of news. There are so many rock and rollers who pass away, and then 3 or 4 days later we forget about them, and about a couple of years later we'll go, didn't he die? Did he pass away? We should remember these people that passed away.
It depends how big they are. The music lives on, obviously. I mean, Michael Jackson, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he'd have been 66 this year.
Well, two of the names they threw at me that I thought were really interesting. Brian Wilson, because I'm like,
Beach Boys,
but Brian Wilson made beach music. We wouldn't have the Jan and Deans without a world. We wouldn't have this thing. Yeah, he's 82. You wouldn't have beach music without Brian Wilson. And I think a lot of people thought he was gone. Probably passed away 10 years ago. And Frankie Valli.
Oh, wow.
Who's 90 years old. And I get goosebumps when I say Frankie Valli, because you don't realize how many genres of music that Frankie Valli touched, not only from the Grease, but all the way from the Four Seasons back in the 50s and 60s, to, of course, his solo effort, where he had 9 top 40 hits.
I didn't realize he had that many, but
it is amazing.
Generational.
It is amazing, though, some of the rockers who lived that lifestyle for a while, got cleaned up, but lived that lifestyle for a while. You know what I'm talking about, and they're still kicking it. I mean, Keith Richards.
Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono turns 91. Mick Jagger 81. Paul Simon will be one of those where it's very reflective, and I think that's where they're going to probably get the gist of their articles written about Paul Simon, because a lot of people don't know Paul Simon for what he's done, not only from a generational standpoint, from musically, of course, we all know about him.
Now,
so you're good with your ages.
Yeah, well, I have a producer in my ear.
But I mean, there's a lot of rock and rollers in our 80s, and that was one of the reasons where I wanted to stay in classic rock, because I knew it was going to change, because once they're gone, there's no one there to sing their original music anymore. And that bums me out to think that we'll never hear Layla from Eric Clapton again when he goes, God forbid.
You know, and I think Mike and I saw the same thing on social media, looking at some of the greats that were really great singers in the 70s. And Boston, the lead singer of Boston, who died tragically, sadly. But we were talking about they stripped the music away, and the voices. It was really a different time for those artists.
One of the times I got a chance to go to the Crosby, Stills and Nash concert, it was like 1992, 93, and they had a mix bar, if they called it a mix bar, but it was really a mixing room that was in the back of the room. No one else could hear, but it was just their vocals.
Oh, God.
And it scared me, because I didn't know if I wanted to hear it enough. We've all heard some of the tapes of Linda McCartney, Paul's passed away wife, who sang, and she was off kilter and was flat and everything.
And modern artists as well.
Sounded so good. It was unbelievable.
It's
like,
true harmony.
Oh my gosh, like, why in the world did they even put music behind these guys? It sounded so good. So be careful what you wish for, but in that particular case, it was a blessing.
It's like the Eagles when they're harmony.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable.
All right, thank you very much, Tony. Appreciate it. Look forward to that article. All right.
Back in a moment.